I've never prayed, but tonight I'm on my knees. I need to hear some sounds that recognise the pain in me. I let the melody rise, let it cleanse my mind. I feel free now, but the airways are clean and there's no one singing to me now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now floating in SCREAMACELICA. My name's Kevin Graham, and as usual on a Tuesday evening, I'm now joined by the rock and roll star himself, Russell Boyce. Boyce, what's happening?
I was just showing off the glasses. I got them for $3.99. I'm not going to actually sit and do the show wearing them, right? That would be a wee bit silly. But for £3.99, you don't get a pint for $3.99 now, Kev. You know? Well, I just thought I better showcase these wee babies. You know what I mean?
Well,
but no, of course, SCREAMACELICA comes first. Professional as always, mate.
I didn't drink anymore, so I didn't ken how much a pint is. So I haven't been in a pub I've been in pubs, but as I say, I was at a meeting the other week there, and I got around them, and it was a Guinness, a lager, and a can of cola, and it was £9, and you were like, you could have picked me up off the flare.
Totally get it.
£9, man, £9. That's unbelievable, man.
For a bit of context, I was in Stirling picking up my dog on Thursday evening. And it's a long couple of buses, right? I was busting for the toilet, right? So I went to Molly Malone's. You'll be familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, look, I'll pay for a juice, but I'm like literally just coming to use your facilities, really. £2.40, mate, for a can of Iron Brew.
Oh, tough, Tough gig.
Most expensive pee I've ever done, mate.
I know. Definitely. That should be a question to the viewers. What's the most expensive pee that you've ever done?
That's a good question,
that's a good question. Russell, you're going to need to talk us through that shirt.
So, some of you might be familiar with the fact that I have, sadly, I mean, it got pathetic, Kev, really, let's be honest. Me and you started doing the Monday Club a long time ago. And wearing a different Adidas original became a thing in my brain. Probably no one else's, let's be honest, no one else cares, but in my brain I'm like, can't I let them down, got to wear a different one every time. And for some reason I then did the exact same thing again with SCREAMACELICA, and he wear a different shirt every show. So I put all this pressure on myself, and then I remember today I have the mix of both, an Adidas original actual shirt. I couldn't think of a better person to be sharing my joy of wearing this shirt, Kev, than yourself. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much. That's a cracker of a shirt. I've never seen an Adidas dress shirt before. And I'm really just quite puzzled that you had forgot how you were, like, you forgot that you had it.
Mate, I swear, I remember wearing it to a guy called Stephen Jeffrey's wedding. He's a good guy, him. And he was like, what is that shirt you're wearing underneath? You're like, I wore a kilt. But he went, is that the Adidas? And I was like, I know, it's pretty petty. And that's why I bought it. And I completely forgot I owned it. I think I've worn this 5 times in the 10 years I've owned it. You know what I mean?
Well, there you go. It's getting its 6 out in this evening. Now, we're in the middle of a festival of football.
Yes.
And we're going to go back to a festival of football which was 21 years ago. And my T-shirt relates to the man that we're going to be speaking about.
The man of the match.
The man of the match that we're going to be speaking about. Now, this T-shirt is from, as a company I mentioned last week, CS Terrace Tees. If you search for them on Twitter under CS Terrace Tees, you'll find them, or it's csterracetees.bigcartel.com. Go and give the comrade a bit of check out. It's fantastic gear. He's got whole loads of stuff there, a whole load of Celtic gear and that. So going to help a brother out, And I'm humbled that he sent me this tonight, and especially for what especially what we're going to be talking about tonight as well, So Euros 2000. And we're going back to, it was Belgium and Holland in the year 2000.
Yes.
But we're going to Holland. We're going to Eindhoven on the 19th of June. That's when Sweden were playing Italy in the Phillips Arena. Was it the Phillips Arena or the Phillips Stadion, I'm going to call it.
Very good, very good. I like that. Stadion sounds better.
In Eindhoven. And it was the final game of Group B. And in Group B, now, can you remember who Sweden bet in their group to qualify for this tournament?
England,
that is correct.
And I think Johan Mjällby may have scored the goal.
He did that, yes.
Yes.
But England also made this tournament. Who did they beat in the playoff?
Scotland. Despite Don Hutchison scoring a header at
Wembley. So there you go.
Very good.
This week in this modern day Fiesta football, we've got a link to what's going to happen on Friday.
Yes, and I felt the game we've done today is completely different for us to have done. Like, we've always done a Celtic link. Even last week, the Ireland link was very much Celtic player related. I suppose there is a slight link, but I just thought
there's plenty of Celtic links in this.
There is, though. It turns out there is, which, again, like you always say, go down the rabbit hole. Once you pick a game, go down the rabbit hole, and you're right. You start thinking of Freddie Lundberg and stuff, but Celtic everywhere here.
Yes, there is Celtic everywhere.
But I just thought it'd be quite refreshing to pick two nations not associated with Celtic or Scotland or Ireland, but yet we'll twist it in. We'll manipulate it to being still amazingly Celtic related.
Of course we will.
It's a fascinating game.
It was a fascinating game. Now, it was the last game, as I say, it was the last game in Group B.
Yep.
Sweden basically needed to win to have any chance of qualification for the knockout stages. They had already played Belgium and Turkey. They had got beaten 2-1 from Belgium. Big Johan Mjällby scored the Swedes goal that day against Belgium as well. And they had a 0-0 draw with Turkey. The Italians were going into this game already qualified. And they had beat Turkey 2-1 and beat Belgium 2-0.
Yeah.
So this was a tough ask for the Swedes to go in.
And they made 8 changes. That's the maddest thing. The Italy team has 8 changes in it, and yet it looks like to me the sort of squad, when you read the names off, you go, that would be a tournament we could win right now.
Definitely. I didn't realise they had made 8 changes, but when I looked in the team, there were some names I was surprised at, but then it's 20 years ago. I was like, well, maybe I wasn't.
Oh, of course.
My mind's not as sharp as it used to be. But this was an Italian team. It played like an Italian team, if you know what I mean. You see that Italian team on Friday night, which played nothing like an Italian team. Like, you're going, what's this? I mean, I'm the guy who...
You're so right. You're so right.
So I'm the guy who's backed Italy in every major tournament since I've been old enough to bet. Because they're always there or thereabouts. It doesn't matter how terrible they are, they'll always get to the knockout stages. There's a couple of tournaments where that hasn't happened right enough, eh? And I'm watching that on Friday night, and I'm going, they've started too well here. I want them to lump into a tournament.
Kev, we were talking about clothes earlier. When Roberto Mancini is on the touchline looking like that, they've got every chance, no matter what style of football they play. That grey jacket, the suit, oh, come on. He looked a dream, didn't he? He must be about 55 years old.
He might be older than that, actually. Mancini could be older than that, could be older than 55. What did you think?
I'm going to say 56, max.
What did you think?
I'm sure he was born. I'm weird with numbers, never I told you.
I know, and I ken that you're big on Italian football. What did you think of the Scotland get up yesterday? The suits that they had on.
I don't know. I thought we all were guilty of setting ourselves up for a fall yesterday, mate. The suits included. It was just one of those ones where I was hook, line and sinker as well, by the way, so don't think I'm being smug about it. I'm really not. I just think we were all convinced that yesterday we would take care of the Czechs, and wow, reality is horrible, isn't it?
It's typical Scotland hubris, isn't it? Liam Dominic Callow comes in for Facebook. Mancini is 56-year-old. So there you go.
65 he was born, I'm telling you.
I'm
weird as anything, mate. I'm weird.
That's some Rain Man going on there, eh? That's definitely. So what we'll do is we'll have a quick run through the Italian team then. Eh? In goals was Toldo, then Ferreira, Paulo Negro. Is that who was that?
Already, mate.
Aye. I can't read my own writing. That's my problem. And that's with the bin zone, eh? Mark Uliano, Gianluca Piesto, Paolo Mandini, Luigi Di Baggio, Massimo Ambrosini, the one and only Del Piero, and Vincenzo Montella. And as you say,
8 changes.
8 changes in that team, and that team is still
frightening.
It's still like, I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 Juve players, the goalkeepers for Fiorentina, Lazio, Milan. What's
Toldo.
that? Went to Milan that summer.
20 million that summer, I'm sure.
Liam Dominic Colo, there you go. Colo, I think I've says your surname right. You can be. I'm terrible with names. Good with faces, terrible with names. But that's a fun. I love Montella. As a player. I mean, Del Piero's just Del Piero, but I like Montella.
I think if my memory's right, the 8 changes, funnily enough, Del Piero was not a starter for Italy at that time.
Which is frightening as well, eh?
Mental.
That is absolutely frightening as well.
And we'll get to it, but the goal he scores in this game, effortless. So good.
The Swedish team, no. This was the point where Scotland didn't qualify for tournaments. And we did actually just naturally migrate to supporting Sweden because there was a
$1,000,000%.
Because there was like the Scandinavian, they had Johan Mjällby, they had Henrik Larsson. And so we says, Sweden's your team when we got to these tournaments. And even last night, what I was really surprised about when I saw this team, that Mikael Lustig wasn't playing right back. he must have been suspended for the tournament or something, eh? Because
he must have been. Seb Larsson not playing midfield confused me a wee bit as well. That's unbelievable that Lustig was still there. I know. Lustig again last night, and that was sore last night. That's the first time I've watched a game coming through that stadium since 2003. Because that was a Seville stadium, and even when the camera panned, I could actually pick myself where I actually was in that stadium, and that's the first game I've watched since 2003. I never really joined those dots, if I'm honest with you.
That's what
I feel a wee bit like I've let Celtic down not joining those dots last night. I never even clicked.
You could pick the football gods yesterday. I felt were picking on me. Mikael Lustig in that stadium in Seville. They were picking on me yesterday. They were having a wee chuckle at themselves. The Swedish side. So there's plenty of Celtic interest in this.
Totally mad.
In goals is Marcus Hedman.
Magnus.
Then you've got Olaf Melberg.
No, Marcus Hedman.
Is that what it says? What's his name? Magnus. Right. Magnus Hedman. Marcus Hedman. Magnus Hedman. Right. Same thing.
Better, actually.
Olaf Melberg, who we were linked with as well quite a few times.
Yes.
Patrick Anderson, Joachim Borkland. Had he already played for Rangers?
Rangers player, yep.
Thomas Gustafsson, Johan Mjällby, Magnus Svensson, Hakan Mild, I better say it right. Freddie Lundberg, Osman Ofsky, and Henrik up front. So, again, how many Celtic players are in that? You've got 4 Celtic players eventually.
Mad. And there's still connotations with other ones as well. You know, it's,
I know.
Been able to play for the rivals, for example. You know, it's funny that I think there's a huge affinity with Celtic in Sweden for some reason. I don't know if it's maybe just all based on Henrik, and then we just feed off any other link because we're that desperate to keep the Henrik link going forever, because he is truly, to me, the icon of all icons that I've ever known in my Celtic sport life. And I know Tony, for example, he talks about Kenny Dalglish. I genuinely believe Henrik Larsson is my, like, what Dalglish is to Tony. I think Henrik Larsson is that Russell Voices guy. You know,
Larsson's that to me as well. And it's when you do talk to an older generation now, and even guys like my dad's age and that, who saw the Lions and the great when Celtic were a European giant, and even they say, Larsson was one of the best. And they've got no qualms of saying that whatsoever. There's no argument. There's no, but that was in a different era. They couldn't lace this one's boots, that one's boots. There's no argument from that generation. They go, Larsson's up there with him. Well, so I think that's why. I mean, this was Larsson coming back from his leg break, and they had to play 20 minutes for Celtic before he went to the squad in the Euros. And he played all 3 games for Sweden in the Euros, after coming on as a 61st minute sub for Eyal Berkovic against Dundee United with a moustache before producer Paul comes in, because he did have one of those pencil moustache stashes that you see off like 16-year-olds and up the strip in Tenerife when they're trying to get in the pubs. A cat looks at them the wrong way and they get a shave. So
I can relate.
So it's a strong Sweden side. It's also I think that we like the Swedes as well, because there's a British element to them. There's always a load of Swedes playing in Britain, so you know them. And the fact is, the best player of your generation is playing for Sweden always means that you want them to go well. And then on that, by this point, you've got Big Johan as well, who's also became a sort of cult player by this point, like for Celtic, a good player for Celtic at this point. And he's playing, Mjällby in this game's playing at the base of a diamond in a 4-4-2.
I know. And it's funny because, was it maybe O'Neill who actually kind of influenced that shift to centre-back from Mjällby?
He did, yes.
Mjällby is someone to me who fits Martin O'Neill's prototype centre-half, or left-back, or right-back. In fact, anyone who plays in a back 4 or 5 who is 6'4" and built like a you-know-what house, that is what Martin O'Neill looked for. I mean, he did it at Villa. I remember he had this guy, Wilfred Bouma, at left-back, who was just an absolute machine. And you thought, that's a centre-half you've got playing at left-back, isn't it, really? For being honest. It's just what he does. He moulds players like that. I actually think it benefited Mjällby playing centre-back. I thought Mjällby came to the fore at Celtic as a centre-half. I remember him much more as a centre-back than I do as a DM.
Mm-hmm. I know, and it was O'Neill. I mean, he was signed as a defensive midfielder for Celtic. His first game, the 5-1 game against Rangers, he played as a defensive midfielder. And it wasn't until Martin O'Neill says and put him in the middle of a free, because they saw that he's, I think, no-nonsense style. If you want to use the cliche of football cliches, the no-nonsense style, he was robust.
Absolutely.
And he was a Martin O'Neill type player. And he knew he was an intelligent player as well. He wasn't the quickest, but he used his football intelligence really, really well. And it's something that we probably need to talk about, because, like, Henrik Larsson gets all the glory, but Johan Mjällby was at Celtic for 6 years as well. He was at Celtic for 6 years, 3 league titles, 2 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups. Then he comes back as assistant manager with Lennon, and three league titles in a row with Lenny.
And see, when he came back as assistant manager, maybe just me and you, he was better looking when he came back as assistant manager, wasn't he?
It was.
He's aged extremely well. Like, Tomo had a wee bit of grey wisps in his hair, and you knew Alan Thompson was our former player. Albie looked ready to put the strip on again, you know what I mean? He looked awesome. And I always remember that tunnel stuff. Remember the tunnel stuff with obviously the Cloister and all that? It was Albie that stuck out for me there. He was ready.
It was.
I like that about him.
I mean, there are stories where Albie was like a sort of enforcer in the dressing room as well with that side, and an enforcer with the coaching staff as well. And for some of the stories that we've been told, he liked leaving a reducer and on training on certain players as well, if they were getting a bit too big for these boots, because as you say, he still looked fit enough, and him and the coaching staff did actually take part in some of the training sessions. And if he wanted to settle a few scores, he did.
I think he also kept Neil Lennon on a tight leash.
He did. But you argue?
I get the vibe that for all Lennon's faults and for all we've criticised Neil Lennon for his second spell at the club, I'll always go back to the fact he didn't have any of his own team. Two arguments to that. Firstly, you accepted that decision, mate. You so you start tying the noose around your own neck. But the flip side is, forget about that and go, what would have happened if he did have Johan Mjällby back beside him this second time? Does it change anything? Maybe not that much, but I certainly think you would have benefited from it. So I certainly think Johan Mjällby would have went, you are not going out and doing that Dubai speech. Just didn't bother. Like, I think Mjällby had him on quite a tight rein. Mjällby was someone who strikes me as very professional and had that level, probably above Neil Lennon's, in fairness, no offence, but I think Neil Lennon maybe is guilty of old school. And I think Johan Mjällby is very much was someone like, no. I mean, come on. We need to lift it a bit. But an absolute Swedish icon, mate. You're absolutely spot on. 6 years he gave us.
I know, 6 years, and 4 years in the coaching staff as well. I mean, he's played Celtic have played a major part in his life, and he's played a major part in Celtic's.
I agree with that.
In this modern Celtic in the last 20 years. I mean, this game, it's a 30,000 sellout, and Big Johan has the first chance. As a corner comes in, and a towering header at the back.
Typical header.
And it's Di Baggio clears it off the line because it's Beck Caldo hands down, and he's got that, like, I love that Sweden kit. That Sweden kit's a classic Sweden kit. And Big Mjällby just looks good in it. He just looks.
The blonde hair.
Oh, it's utterly
He's
super.
gloriously handsome, Big Johan.
What's that?
He's gloriously handsome.
He is.
And a team of like sort of robust, sort of not dirty players, but they needed to play ugly. Mjällby was like doing the exact same as the rest, but just doing it looking awesome. I like that.
Like what's that American apparel model? It looks like a surf dude. He looked like an extra for Baywatch.
He reminds me of Drago.
Aye. That's how we got the nickname Dolph. Football players been very original with nicknames once again.
Of course.
Adam Crockett comes in and he says, "What would you guys give for a Johan player now, captain?" Oh, we would love a Johan player. Johan's a player
Johan Mjällby was someone that maybe came in as captain occasionally. Like, was maybe like your vice captain sort of thing. Like, he was a leader, wasn't he? He was doing the job anyway at the back.
Aye, definitely.
We just don't have that, Kev, at all right now.
The team looked good. If I was Christopher Ayer, I'll be watching YouTube videos of Johan Mjällby and going, that's how you use your physique. That's how you use your presence. That's how you use God's gift to your own
Johan
advantage.
Mjällby, just talk about Johan Mjällby. Johan Mjällby then went on, I think people forget this, World Cup 2002. I could be wrong. I think I'm right. He made the team of the tournament. So,
he did that.
Alongside Joe Ferran. And then for me at that point was, you and me, I'll be ever crying about booing and huffing and puffing about leaving Celtic. No. And yet you get guys who have 60 minutes of good football in their whole career. They cannot wait to get to that exit door and think that, playing for Southampton's a bigger deal. It's not.
It's not, but we're having a look at this tournament and
yes, sorry.
We're having a look, but no, this is what happens with us. This is just a bad discussion, eh? This is what happens. The Swedish look good, but then again, you've got the Italians who are just sitting back and being Italy, going, we didn't really need to do nothing here. You need to come at us. You need a result more than us, and we'll just pick you off on the break. We've got Del Piero and Montella that can run. We didn't need to go chasing this game, and that's when the Italians are at their best.
They thrive on that,
especially in tournament football. Eh? But then the Italians could have been 1-0 down because Lundberg misses an absolute sitter. I still can't believe how he actually put that by the post.
It's almost harder to do that, Kev. Like, since I watched it back, the first chance the keeper kind of bundles it back to him, but that second snatch, I'm like, that's almost impossible to send that. It's not like he just sent it a wee bit wide. It was miles away. I don't actually know how he's angled his foot to make the ball go in that direction. It was harder to do that, Kev, than score. It
was some bit of skill to put it by the post.
Aye.
It was a great bit of skill to put it by the post. So after that sitter, you're sitting watching the highlights again. And I remember watching the game at the time once. Obviously, the highlights jog hangs in your head in. And at that point, you started thinking, the Italians are just going to nick one here. And lo and behold, they actually did. So in the 39th minute, a Del Piero corner and Di Baggio headers it in at the near post. Now, Marcus Hedman doesn't really cover himself in glory here. Where
Either does someone else.
Well, we can come to that, eh? Marcus Hedman doesn't really cover himself in glory. He comes off his line where he's got no really chance to come off his line. I think he can actually see Di Baggio getting the ball, and he's gone, I'm going to try and do something here. And he just sort of flaps like a guy falling for a high-rise building, really at it, eh? But as you say, the Swedes are playing zonal marking, and whose zone is Di Baggio scoring?
Do we need to? No, I hate saying it though. Yeah, it was Henrik's zone. It was Henrik Larsson's zone. It was.
But I'm going to stick up for Henrik Larsson. Who was picking up the runner? Di Baggio was standing there like all alone. He made that
in his zone once he scored the goal, not when he started.
Aye. But Larsson's marking, he's doing what he has to do at that near post. So whoever's let him run into that zone is at fault, because I reckon Larsson didn't even know he was there, because Larsson jumps to try and clear the ball, and the ball goes across his head. So he's not going to know that Di Baggio's came in behind him, eh? So
absolutely spot on, Kev. I'm really glad you did that. I feel a hell of a lot better now.
I know. You can't blame him.
It does make you feel better.
It does, I mean, I was annoyed in the highlights reel that it was that the commentator actually says, that was Henrik Larsson's man. And I'm going, no, it wasn't it? No. You didn't ken nothing about zonal marking. I listened to Gordon Stratton talking about zonal marking. That wasn't it. That wasn't Henrik Larsson's man. No, you're all wrong there. The commentator was clutching at straws, blaming Larsson for that. And Big Hedman kind of chucks a wee strop after it when the ball ends up in the back of the net as well, eh? Magnus Hedman.
Let's be honest, see, we're going to talk about Swedish and Celtic connections. You have to talk about Marcus or Magnus, whatever you prefer, Hedman. He was rank rotten, Kev. I mean, he came with a bit of a reputation when he joined us, 50-odd caps. Absolute murder. I'll never forget the Bayern Munich game. That one where he just watches it go in the far corner. He lacked the eye of the tiger, mate. He just didn't have, he didn't have control. And you need a keeper, like, see Boric, who came in then shortly after, and even David Marshall to an extent as a 19-year-old, I felt were streets and streets ahead of Magnus Hedman, a guy with 50-odd caps for Sweden, joined from Coventry, 2 million quid, I think it was, and had a bit of a reputation, mate, as a good. This guy's a player. Oh, Matt Douglas overtook him again. Remember? In fact, did we loan him out?
I can't remember.
I think we loaned him out. Honestly, I think we ended up loaning Magnus Hedman out. It was awful.
I never complained when we signed Hedman. Never complained whatsoever, because I thought, by the way, we're getting an absolute decent goalkeeper here. But he just didn't seem to have. Look, I think he had the ability, but I don't think he had the mentality to play for Celtic. Celtic were the biggest club that he was ever going to play for, and coming from Coventry to Celtic's a massive difference. A massive difference, and it's quite difficult to judge goalkeepers on their time at Celtic, because he had quite a good. He was still in the Swedish squad at this point as well. He made a couple of decent saves in this game. Some players just didn't work it, and Hedman was one of them. But again, it's Martin O'Neill and goalkeepers. It's probably one of the things with Martin that he didn't pick a decent goalkeeper. And
did he not though? I mean, Rob Douglas to me was the best goalkeeper in the SPFL other than Kloss. You're not going to sign Kloss at that time, obviously.
But Kloss was the highest.
So Rob Douglas was the best other, right? Magnus Hedman to me, a Sweden international with 50, 60 caps at the time. It's not like he's signing the wrong guys here. But it's funny that they all seem to flap in that Celtic team. The rest of the team seem to play above themselves, but the goalkeeper role, they all seem to play below themselves. And I'm sure it was you who raised this the other week. The best one of the lot was Sanchez Brotto. And when he came in, he just seemed to. It was Tony and Laura talking about.
Tony and Laura,
Tony and Laura, sorry. It was Sanchez Brotto came in, and he's ice in his veins. He was, maybe he didn't care, I don't know. But he just seemed to be not fazed at all by this elevation from Airdrie or Livingston, then Celtic. He just seemed nonplussed by it, which the other two, Hedman and Douglas, at times, we both know could do great shot stopping, but both of them seemed to flap when they came to the crunch. Let's be honest, they didn't have the, as you say, the mentality.
I think that was it. I'm not going to take the credit away from Tony and Laura for actually saying something.
Sorry, I know that was bad.
I can't say. I didn't say anything sensible at all. But I do wonder if sometimes Brotto is looked through green tinted specs. I think there's a lot of revisionism maybe goes on there, and I mean, he couldn't play in Seville, if I remember correctly, because he had played in the UEFA Cup for Livingston. He played in the UEFA Cup for Livingston. Even saying that sounds utterly bizarre.
That is bizarre.
That's how he couldn't play in Seville.
I never even caught. Oh wow, of course. Yeah, because they won the. They won. It was the CIS Cup.
Aye, I'm old school. I called it the League Cup. I still call it the League Cup. So. Aye, so that was the reason that he was cup tied for. That was the reason that he was cup tied for the UEFA Cup final. We get to 77 minutes in this game, and the Swedes are gone out by this point. The Italians are just they've shot.
They need to win, don't they?
Aye, the Swedes really need to win to have any chance. And by this time, the result in the other games no gone their way anyway, because Turkey are up. But then we get a moment of utter genius from a moment of sensational genius from Mr. Larsson.
The King of Kings.
The King of Kings. The guy who used to cheer up every tournament for us at this time. Sub Kenneth Anderson, a big beanpole a guy, intercepts a ball from DiBaggio. And he sticks a ball through. Larsson makes a wee run, and he sticks a ball through. And Larsson's got, like so many times you saw him with Celtic, he's got the acres and acres of grass in front of him, bearing down on a goalkeeper. And the Italians do what the Italians does. They stick their hands up for offside, because that's just as what they do. And he was on. I must admit, he was on it. Wasn't even, well, I can tell by your face it's maybe touch and go, but I think he was...
Benefit of the doubt, Kev. If he wasn't,
right,
it wasn't
right.
his zone. It wasn't his zone. It wasn't his fault for the corner, and it was definitely onside.
Let's just say VAR would have chopped it off.
Well,
VAR now would have chopped it
you're
off.
just ruining it now. You don't need to say that.
Because of the new rules,
I know.
VAR would have chopped it off. Anyway, he's bearing down on Toldo, who at this point is man of the match with 3 great saves. And you're going, what's gone through Henrik Larsson's mind here, eh? It's ice cold. There's no panic. There's no none. Does he know what he's going to do?
Yes.
I don't know. Do you think so?
Yes, he decides early. I think he's one of those folks. It's ice cold you're talking about. The other way I would describe it is crystal clear mindset. He doesn't fluster. He doesn't think about 3 different options. He goes, "This is what I'm going to do," and he does it. And remember, like I say, Francesco Toldo at that point is just about to join Inter Milan. Either that summer or the summer after. I'm not quite sure which one, but I think it was around £20 million. At 30 years old. That's how good a goalie this guy is. This is his name Mug. And Henrik's not played for a year, really. You know, he's been bedded back into the Euros. He played 20 minutes coming on for Berkovic. He's had the worst injury you've ever seen in your life. And for being honest, I've never seen a leg break like that in my life. Like,
truthfully, I was actually quite glad I was in Lyon and didn't realise how bad it was until we got home.
Does that not speak volume?
A day and a half later. We never saw any of the pictures of the papers or anything like that because we were travelling back for Lyon, eh? So we didn't realise how bad it was in the stadium at the time.
And I have to give a shout out, Kev. There was someone on Twitter yesterday, the best tweet I've ever seen. Michael Moles was better than Henrik Larsson before his injury.
I saw it.
Like, he gets free popcorn off me every day, mate, if he wants to ever engage on Twitter again. That is world class nonsense.
But it was a reply. Henrik Larsson was better with a broken leg than Michael Moles.
That's too good. But yeah, the goal itself, the step over now, some people older than me. Well, no, actually, okay, I remember the first time round as well. The World Cup '94. Remember, I've told you this in SCREAMACELICA a few times. The tournament I got football, that was my bug. I went, oh God, right, this is my life now. Like, and it was. And I always remember a Henrik Larsson, a dreadlocked Henrik Larsson doing this drag over, very Davor Suker-esque in the 3rd place playoff. I think it was against Bulgaria. And
yes, it was
4-1. And I always remember that. He's then repeated the trick, but against far better opposition when Sweden were needing it as well. Remember, they don't really know the score in another game, Kev. They need to win. And he does a step over to go one way and takes it to the right. And as you just said, rightfully, ice cold. And this is a guy coming back from the brink. And lo and behold, the following 12 months, he produces his best football ever and wins the European Golden Boot. Is it any wonder? And
he also scores a similar goal in a cup final.
Yes.
7 months later in the League Cup final when he rounded Gordon Marshall after running from the halfway line. So it's when you see the goal again, it's fantastic. And I remember going mental when he scored because you just knew that player's back. He's back. He's back. This is going to be brilliant. At that point, we had just appointed Martin O'Neill as manager as well. O'Neill had started on the 1st of June. And you've appointed the best manager in Britain out with Arsene Wenger and Alex Ferguson. For me, I'm not going to. I've had folks telling me I was wrong there. No. Martin O'Neill was the first best manager. Martin O'Neill was the third best manager in England, in Britain, when we appointed him. And so to see Larsson doing that, again, looking back, you're like that. That was the moment you knew this could be good. because we've got a decent manager for once, and our talisman, a once-in-a-generation player, has just came back. Has came back from the most horrific leg break that you've ever seen, and he does that on the massive stage.
Yes, and there was something about Henrik that was like, he was such an icon anyway, and that's all about the look, I suppose, at first. And it's once you break him down and you start going, it's his character, really. I don't care about his dreadlocks. I don't care he shaved his head. See, his character, he was hard as nails, mate. And he was very defensive about what Celtic contribute to UK football, what he contributes to UK football, and that those down south judging him on that or doubting him on that are bang out of order and are lazy in their journalism on it, because Henrik was one of those folk who didn't need to do it on a rainy night in Stoke. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't need to do it on a rainy night in Stoke to show he was good. Could he do it on a weeknight at Stoke in the rain? Henrik Larsson didn't need to. He'll do it at Ewood Park. Do it at Anfield. He'll do it at Anfield. He'll do it at World Cups, Euros. And Euro 2008, remember he kind of did that wee flick about 2 yards out for the goal line. And I know it was a scuff, but see if you look at his reaction after it, there's a bit of enjoyment that he's done that against England. I'm telling you right now, he's loving it.
Henrik Larsson left Celtic Football Club to wind down his career and ended up winning a Champions League. That's it. That's all you need to know. He says, I'm going to wind down my career and go back to Sweden. He ends up winning a bloody Champions League. Then he ends up playing for Man United. Come on.
Very good.
That's some retirement. That's some retirement tour. They go to the MLS or the Australian League or Japan. He goes to Barcelona to retire. Who does that?
That's such a good way to put it.
Only a generational player does that.
Yeah.
I mentioned Martin O'Neill there. And Martin O'Neill was working for ITV in this tournament. And
now we're cooking gas.
He was working for ITV in the tournament. And obviously Martin O'Neill's first signing was Chris Sutton. Who was the player that he spotted in this tournament while sitting doing it for ITV?
Who let the dogs out?
Who let the dogs out? Big Hughes.
Who's?
Right? And basically that's what O'Neill knew nothing about Hughes Valhaar until he saw him in the first game against
for Belgium.
Belgium.
Against Sweden, of course.
And right away he says, I quite like the look of that big fella, and found out all about him. So
that's right. So there it intertwines all over again. That's a clever thread, Kev. And I don't like when you poke up your backside, but
nobody else will.
That's a very good thread, mate. That is clever. I had not joined those dots.
Mm-hmm. Aye, that's what, because Martin O'Neill basically, he started on the 1st of June and he had already signed up to do the Euros, and I remember there was a big, massive hoo-ha about it. Oh, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And Tommy Burns and Matt Reaper took the first couple of days of pre-season training until O'Neill returned for the Euros.
Wow. Oh, do you know what's also very interesting? Just a wee side note. There's someone else who's just took his first ever coaching job who's about to do the same thing. Scott Brown. Scott Brown is about to be ITV's, whatever Scotland game it is they cover. I don't know if it's the game on Friday or the following one. But Scott Brown is on their list of pundits, which seems quite alien to me for Scott Brown to be doing that. Whereas Martin O'Neill, you knew, was born to do stuff like that. As much as he was a great manager, he loved taking Gary Lineker, etc. to school. You know, he was witty, he was sharp. Scott Brown, though, must be, as you rightfully point out, when you thought of O'Neill, then you thought, well, Matt Reaper shouldn't be taking coaching. We need O'Neill in the job. We need him there. And I wonder what the Aberdeen fans make of Scott Brown's commitment to doing the ITV thing. And I wonder what decision Scott Brown made first. Do you think he chose to join Aberdeen and then went, by the way, I've agreed to do ITV?
Well, I don't know.
Have they given the green light to do that whilst accepting he's now a coach? because he spoke quite publicly. Sorry, just quickly. He spoke quite publicly about he's been involved in the recruitment side of things as well.
Is it?
He says it's really fascinating. He goes, I'm learning a lot now, player recruitment, etc. So
I'm Scott Bounds did to me now. He plays for Aberdeen.
Oh, don't say that. You don't mean that.
Aye, no, that's until. I mean, I don't. We're in the age of Ange now, so that's where we're going. We're in the age of Ange, and so that's where all our focus is going to be. But good luck to Scott Brown and his media career. But that's Martin O'Neill. He was at the Euros, and I remember the big. I mean, we had no coach, we had like no background staff. So Tommy Burns came from the youth team, and Matt Reaper was an experienced player who had just retired, ended up starting taking pre-season training.
I did not know that.
Because Steve Walford and
Robertson
didn't come until the season started.
That's right.
So
I didn't know Matt Reaper was that heavily involved, though. I didn't know that until today.
They wanted Reaper to stay. Obviously, Burns went back to the youth Lennoxtown. He went back to that, but they wanted Reaper to stay as part of the team. But he did go back to Denmark.
Wow!
So there you go.
Good knowledge again.
Yes.
You're doing well tonight, Kev. You're on fire. I would not have known that.
Well, the project I've been working on for about 2 years is round about this period, so I'm quite up. My knowledge of this period is quite unbelievable. So we may as well talk about Del Piero's goal to win it for Italy. What a peachy a goal this is, eh? The ball breaks to him and he rifles it in for the edge of the box. It's a classic Del Piero goal.
Do you know what's so funny? It's twice Del Piero scored against a team I didn't want him to score for, or in a match I didn't want him to score for. And both times he's a bit of a reserve.
I know.
The Juventus 4-3 Celtic game, I know goes down in history, but let's be honest, they made a lot of changes that game. They did. That 4-3 game, they did, eh? No, they did.
Oh, they did.
And Del Piero at that point was out of favour for whatever reason. He was not. See, in the 90s, I remember he used to destroy Man United and that. He used to torment them when he was 20, 21. And then he seemed to be one of those folk who got to 28, 29 and folk fell out of love with him. And then by the time he was 36, 37, he was getting told he was the best player in the world again. It's a very strange cycle that I think you see that with a lot of footballers, if I'm honest, that they go through, they get to their peak and everyone wants to grind them down or break them down. And then they get older and everyone gets nostalgic about them again. But the goal itself,
peach.
Wow. Effortless, mate.
We say this quite a lot in this. We saw that we says this about Andy Tom's goal at Ibrox a couple of weeks ago. This is what nets are for. This is why nets are made to catch. They're not made to catch David Marshall like he's a drunk lobster tangled up in a net. Eh? They're actually made to stop balls like this.
So true.
Killing somebody, giving somebody a serious facial injury in the crowd. I mean, Larsson and Del Piero on the same score sheet. I mean, you can't get much better than that. And when you go back to that 4-3 game, for me, Lubo was the best player on the night, best player on the park that night. But it was closely followed by Trezeguet, because they brought on Trezeguet at half time. And he was one. He had a fantastic 45 minutes.
He was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
He was a joke. And again, Celtic connections always. Who was it that watched David Trezeguet's first team training session at Monaco? John Collins, because he's playing with him. John Collins played with Henry, Trezeguet. Mad. There's more Celtic connotations. You know what I mean? Which is cool. I think as well with the kits, you're saying the Sweden kit, one of the nicest Sweden kits, which I've always liked Sweden kits anyway. And maybe there is a bit of bias because of Henrik. Maybe there is. Who cares?
I've actually got
the Italy one though, superb. The first top I ever seen that had these sleeves that came down to the elbows as opposed to, it was like the first sort of neat fit. And the reason behind it was, I read about this. So Kappa made the strips. Ended up Roma wore it, Tottenham wore it, Blackburn wore it, and the reason for it was because it was getting used in rugby at the time, Kev. and it was the highlight of someone's pulling your jersey because it was made of this stretchy material. So the point was, it's not going to let, funnily enough, what you would probably class as Italian defenders get away with their usual tricks, because it was going to highlight more to the referee if a shot's being tugged or pulled at. There you go.
I must admit, it wasn't one of my favourite Italian tops, that one. I've got the Sweden top up the stairs.
Have you?
Aye, I have got that Sweden top. It's a bit tight on me. That's why I haven't got it on the night, because I wouldn't be able to move. And next time I see you, Russell, I'll actually gift it to you, because it'll fit you. It will fit you.
Oh, mate, no,
it will fit you.
Oh, thanks, and I would love that. By the way, I would.
So that's us spoke about the Euros, Henrik Larsson. It's always great to talk about. It's always great to talk about Henrik Larsson, Del Piero, fantastic football players. Let's talk about what everybody's on here, but the legends.
Right.
Legends
I'm going to go first.
You go first.
I'll tell you why. Because the guy you've chose is actually, I much prefer him. He's my absolute favourite. I want to do more. Let's talk about him more, right? But I went for Johnny Cash. The American album is number 3. And very briefly, I listened to the album twice. Again, like that's my usual homework. Dolby Atmos. Remember I told you about the setting?
Aye.
And forms the music. I was a bit bored, I'll be honest with you, once I got midway through it. What I will say is, his version of One, that obviously a U2 famous song, is better than U2's.
Definitely.
And I don't know why, because Bono is clearly singing better notes or betterly singing than Johnny Cash. But Johnny Cash's directness hits home. It's like, I don't know how he's doing that, but it's like it connects very, very well. It's like, it's really simple what he's doing, but also so real that you can't help but like get the wee hairs on your arm, you know, sort of stand up when he's talking about one love, one life and stuff. And I know that he did the album when his health was deteriorating.
It's the emotion that he's got in the lyrics of the song. And he's transferring his emotion into those lyrics. For me anyway, picturing, as you say, he's getting to the end of his life. He's like...
He's reflective.
He's reflecting.
So he's singing it from a completely different perspective than what Bono was in the 80s when it got released.
Oh, definitely.
He's singing it with a different meaning. And it's took the song on to this different stage. I emphasise to anyone, if you want to listen to a really nice, you know, you have one of those moments in life, we all have them, emotional moments. One by Johnny Cash is, for me, the perfect B-side to the Hurt song, which I know got the infamy. It's got the infamy, but I think One is up there beside it as the B-side.
Johnny Cash is a rock and roll legend.
Yes.
Bottom line, there's no argument, there's no ifs, buts and maybes. Johnny Cash is a rock and roll legend.
It's about delivery, Kev. See, sometimes everyone looks, you know, see if every rock and roll band was signed by Charlotte Church, the songs wouldn't mean as much. You can be, or Adele, you know, you can't be, sometimes it's not about your singing ability. Sometimes it's about connecting with your audience and connecting with the listener. And for whatever reason, right or wrong, he completely does that.
Definitely. I mean, when you're talking about connecting with your audience, Richard Ashcroft, in the June of this year, released his first solo album, which was 3 years after the Verve went stratospheric with Urban Hymns. And did this album connect with the fans of the Verve, do you think?
Don't care. It was... I think folk tried too hard with that stuff. Like the Verve, I think the Verve's band vibe was they're a lot cleverer than Richard. Like we're like really clever musicians. Like just write a good tune, mate, and shut up. You know what I mean? Get on with it. And Ashcroft, to me, his solo stuff. Oh God, I could enthuse about Richard Ashcroft till the cows come home. Like me and my mate Matt Laird, we never called him Ashcroft. We called him God. That's the honest truth. I'm going to see God today. we went to see him between us, I mean, about 15 times together, you know, and he's just, for me, he's there. And it's great writing sentimental lyrics, like in that album, there's plenty of Brave New World, etc. I Get My Beat, which is my favourite. I love that song. But do you know what's mad with Ashcroft is, he actually meant it when he was singing it. I think he's 27 years married to his wife now. He wasn't taking the piss. Like, sorry about the language. I just feel like he wasn't taking the mick. He was actually being true and honest. He wasn't just like giving you sound bites of, oh, that's soul music, man. And he's actually telling the truth. He's just a big loving guy, you know?
His wife actually played on this album. His wife, Kate Radley, played on this album. Do you know the whole story of who his wife is?
No.
His wife is a lady called Kate Radley, who was in a band called Spiritualized that I love. I did know that, yeah. And the Verve toured with Spiritualized and around America before they released A Northern Soul. And Kate Radley used to be, you hear me and Paul talk about Jason Pierce. Basically, Kate Radley was Jason Pierce's girlfriend, but she ended up leaving Jason Pierce for Richard Ashcroft. So there you go.
Love it. What do you think of the album? Talk to him about the album. You must have listened to it again.
I love the album. The album's a far, far stronger than what I remember it being. It's far, far stronger than what I remember it being. I mean, you've got 3 songs on it. A Song for Lovers, which is a superb song. New York and Come On People, We're Making It Now, which were all written for urban hymns, but never made it on the album.
Okay.
Right.
I didn't know that.
There is versions on YouTube of the Verve doing Come On People. There is a version, and I also think there's a version of the Verve doing Song for Lovers as well.
So did you know his new album, or his latest album, it was a couple of years ago, is a song on it called Birds Fly. And that apparently is an old Verve song as well. And I can kind of hear it when you even his obviously a completely different road he went down with it, but I'm sure that was meant to be a Verve song as well. And he brought that back. But Come On People Are Making It Now. Wait to hear this. Do you know that's Liam Gallagher's #1 dream to cover?
Is it? I can picture Liam doing that.
Imagine that. So right before lockdown, Liam Gallagher was getting drunk going on Twitter. I've done it plenty of times myself, to be fair. Apologies to anyone I've offended. But I mean, like, he was going on like 2 in the morning, just going, "Come on, people are making it now." And then it was like, someone's like, "Why do you keep saying that?" And he goes, "Because I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to bring the beast out with that." You know, it was sort of words up to that effect. I think that could be right good. Like,
it could be. It could be right good. I can actually picture him doing a great version of it. I can.
Please, you go.
I've always wanted Liam to do a version of River Deep. No. I've come back to on you go. I forgot the song that I was going to mention.
Just quickly, it's always about being relevant. So we always tie in Celtic players with Sweden, or Sweden players with Celtic, or whatever. But it's important to do it with music as well. Now, New York, you brought up by Richard Ashcroft. What does he say at the end? Are you tuning in? It's a state of mind.
There you go.
That's what he says at the very end of the song. Tuning in, it's a state of mind. And that song, by the way, is Gallagher's.
It's a great. You can actually hear the Verveness in it, and the song "Money to Burn" as well sounds like Spiritualized. And I always kind of have a wee chuckle when I hear that, because I know that Kate Radley used to be in Spiritualized.
But that's what I get my beat on it as well, doesn't it?
Yes,
I get my beat on you when we see things through. That song to me is that's just him at his best, mate. I just think it. And do you know what you forget? You're talking about this as like this post-Verve career. Richard Ashcroft at that point was 28, turning 29 years old. Think how young that is. And like, that's the Verve done with at that point. Well, like, what's that back catalogue already?
Well, Ashcroft, right? I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm not going to disagree with Ashcroft. The song that I wanted Liam to ever cover is Proud Mary. I think you'd be great at doing Proud Mary. I think you'd be fantastic. Anyway, back. So this is between Urban Hymns, and this is the 2 and a bit year between Urban Hymns and this. So obviously Ashcroft's got these songs sitting there, right?
Yes.
So 3 years ago there was a reissue of Urban Hymns, and I don't know if you ever listened to all the interviews that went on with Urban Hymns. So
Right.
Richard Ashcroft done one on, I think it was Virgin Radio,
Yep.
and Nick McCabe and Simon Tong done another one, I think, on the BBC. And the two stories of the album are two completely different versions. Richard Ashcroft will sit there all day and claim that Urban Hymns was his first solo album. He says that should have been my first solo album, right? And he was claiming that. The other two, Tong and McCabe, were saying the album didn't sound anything like until they went in and polished a lot of it up and made it the album that it was.
I get that.
Made it the album it was. So 3 years ago they're releasing box sets, and in this interview with McCabe and Simon Tong, they start mentioning these songs that Richard Ashcroft won't allow them to release as extras on the box set.
Wow.
Right? So he says, there's whole loads of stuff there that we recorded when Nick came back in. And 3 days before the Urban Hymns box set is released, all 6 of them appear on YouTube, right? With a guy called Star Sailor. So it's obviously Nick McCabe's fired them up, right? And the story going about is these songs, the 6 songs are, if you search Star Sailor or you search Jalfrezi by the Verve, so all the songs have got strange names. There's one of them called Sweet and Sour. There's one of them called Jalfrezi. There's one of them called King Riff.
I did not know this.
There's one of them called Tina Turner. So they must have just had, obviously they just had pet names for the songs. And Pete Salisbury, the drummer, who always works with Ashcroft, has actually admitted that Ashcroft's tried to record some of these songs for his solo stuff and can't get it right, because these are Verve songs. There's also a song called Oh Sister, which is one of the best Verve songs ever. It's never been released. So if you go on YouTube and search the Verve Jalfrezi or the Verve Sweet and Sour, you'll find these 6 tracks. So it makes me wonder why Ashcroft, these have never appeared on any Ashcroft solo album, and they never appeared on the next Verve album.
Yeah, what's the benefit? What's the benefit? Because the Verve came back 2008, as you rightly point out, and
similarly,
you would think if they were going to see the light of day, if it's not been on one of what by that point 3 Richard Ashcroft solo albums, then it would come on the Verve comeback album.
It would come on the Verve. Similarly, the only one that was close to making the comeback album was Oh Sister. That was close. That was close to being on 4th, but somehow it was pulled at the last minute. And
do you know what? I always got the vibe that when they came back, I felt did it a bit for the money. I got the vibe that they weren't really committed to each other like they were before. I still think there was scars there that were just not going to heal. They were a band that don't really get on anymore, and don't appreciate what's happened in the last decade. I think they looked at Ashcroft coming out in bare feet and thought it was pathetic. You know what I mean? Because there were loads of guys in bare feet at one point, and I can imagine McCabe and that being like, music is power. They found it corny. I generally love it, but I can imagine them going, you used to be cool, like you're not anymore. And I think those tensions, I always got the vibe were there. I never ever felt they were back together for good, even when they came back.
No. I think
you always had that vibe, eh?
When you hear then, when they re-release Urban Hymns and you hear these 2 interviews about the same album and they're wildly different, it just shows you how both parties in the band have got different perceptions. For me, these songs, I think Salisbury says that he's tried to record them a couple of times, but I think these songs are not on anything apart from the YouTube leak, because they weren't solely written by Richard Ashcroft, and he would have to have paid the other band members a royalty to them.
which is quite ironic considering what Bittersweet Symphony did to Richard Ashcroft.
And when he's got to fourth, I'll need to check fourth, I think a lot of them are written by Ashcroft only. And a lot of these, when you actually hear them, a lot of these songs are all jams which have been formed into songs. I think it was, over my head, I can only see Ashcroft being...
Which is all very funny as well, Kev, because you talk about songs being written by Richard Ashcroft. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly say this. I always remember a famous quote recently by none other than Noel Gallagher. I don't need an army of songwriters like our kid, Richard Ashcroft, you name them. And Ashcroft put his first tweet out for 8 years saying, hey, no, what's that all about army songwriters? Go look at my song crediting. You know what I mean? Before you start that nonsense. Hey, you've got his albums, it's him. What's the irony is though, Kev, and this is now me bringing things to modern affairs, Noel Gallagher just released a song the other day called Flying on the Ground. It could be written by Richard Ashcroft, right? It's so Richard Ashcroft, it's unreal. But it's wonderful. I encourage people to listen to it. But I just thought there was a bit of irony there. You know, you used to accuse him of an army of songwriters, now you're singing songs that are in his style.
Definitely. It's a very good song, that song by Noel Gallagher.
It is the way.
But I think for tonight, the lost treasure is seek out those 6 verse songs.
Yes.
Which it makes me wonder why Ashcroft was so determined that these would never see the light of day.
Why?
Why? When they're absolutely fantastic songs.
And why, when they got back together, was it still not like a unification just to bring them out then? That's weird.
That's a puzzle because you've got from 98 to 2000, these songs are there and they never appeared until 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I could talk about Richard Ashcroft all night, Kev, to be honest with you. I mean,
I know. So could I, but I think everybody wants to go and watch France v Germany.
Yes.
And producer Paul has got somewhere else to be as well. I'm surprised that he's not came in and told us that to shut up and move on. So everybody, thanks a lot. Hope you're all enjoying the Euros. I'm back tomorrow afternoon for the bulletin. Please subscribe, tell your friends.
About that, Kev. That's still a nerve.
That's still a nerve.
You know, you don't do bulletins, you know.
I don't do bulletins anymore. Please subscribe, tell your pals, do whatever you want. Calm down and see.
Calm down
and just be nice to folk. If folk are no nice to you, be nice back to them. We're here for a short time, no a long time. Just calm down, everybody.
Love that.
Calm down, everybody, and see you later.
Cheers.